I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute convos where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Bruce Wawrzyniak. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I am doing just fantastic, Angel. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to connect with you, Bruce. Please do tell us, what part of the world are you in right now?
I am in the southeast of the United States and specifically in Tampa, Florida. Beautiful Tampa, Florida.
Oh, sweet. And which of your talent, my friend, is responsible for us connecting at this time?
Well, either podcasting is responsible for us meeting or networking, and specifically connecting on LinkedIn, which was probably because of a podcasting related post.
Yeah, most definitely. Tell us about your podcast, please, and what you do there.
My podcast is called Now Hear This Entertainment, and each week I interview a guest who is having success in entertainment, which is primarily music. And it's a show meant to educate the listeners who are up-and-coming performers, and it's also meant to entertain listeners who are fans of that guest or fans of just good music interviews in general. We do play 2 songs from the guest every week, so you get to discover some new artists, although I have had some pretty accomplished people on there as well, which I'm very proud of. I had the keyboard player for Aerosmith, the lead guitar player for Garth Brooks. I had the drummer for Joe Walsh, the trumpet player for Billy Joel, and then people who have been on American Idol, The Voice, America's Got Talent, The X Factor, and even a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, a Grammy Award winner, 2 Emmy Award winners. So it's quite an impressive list, and even a Las Vegas headliner too.
Wow, well, that definitely speaks to your talent as a networker. Tell us, who did you learn that from as well?
Well, I feel like we're still talking about 2 different things here. I learned podcasting from a guy here in the Tampa Bay area that we know as the Podfather. His name is Steve Cherubino. He has a couple of podcasts himself, but the whole idea of networking and connecting, I can't really say that I learned that from anyone in particular. It's just something that you do out of necessity when you're an entrepreneur, you know, although I've never been bashful, so that that certainly helps.
What has been one of I'm stammering. What has been one of the things that have been similar from those individuals that are definitely headliners, the popular people in the music industry, and the new upcoming musician or singer? What has been one commonality you've seen?
Well, I think everybody that I talk to, whether it's someone as high up as a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer or even these people who you don't necessarily know their name, but they're having success in entertainment in their own right, it's always been very impressive to me that they're all willing to help one another. And ironically, I am often heard saying on my podcast that there is too much of the CO word, meaning competition, instead of the CO word, which is collaboration. Yet, because of the way that I structure my show, I make sure that I'm drawing information out of them that helps listeners who are up and comers, because I know that those folks are frustrated. I know what their challenges are, and I know that they want to learn from people who are already having success in music. So I'm very impressed that the guests are happy to acknowledge those listeners. They're happy to cater to that audience, and they're happy to share some of the insights. I don't want to say some of the industry secrets, but they're happy to pass along some tips, some tricks, some of the tools of the trade that have helped them accomplish what they've accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that speaks so much to leadership, you being the leader of the podcast, the host, and what you're doing there and what you would like expressed, which represents you, doesn't it, in terms of what you would like to be expressed. Again, I'm repeating myself, but is that accurate or isn't it accurate?
It is accurate, because the podcast, when I launched it, was just supposed to be a marketing tool for my business, because my business is management, promotion, and booking for entertainers. So I want to help those people. And so I'm taking that same attitude of service on the podcast and saying, look, the mission here is to help people. So you're correct in saying I'm taking that leadership role on the podcast and saying, we're going to promote you. We're going to play your songs. We're going to talk about your new album. We're going to talk about your upcoming tour, that type of thing, because I know that's what you want. And I do want the guest to have a good experience. And as a promoter myself, I know that this is the type of promotion I'd love for my clients to be able to get. But I do also want to lead you down a path that hopefully you'll find to be enjoyable, because it's not the same interview that you're used to over and over and over, where people are asking you the same questions repeatedly. In this case, it is an opportunity to say, you know what, I need to give back to the music community a little bit. Yes, Bruce, here is how I completely funded my new album through crowdfunding, or here is how I got booked at better venues, or here is how I got my music placed in film and television, just to name a few examples.
There's a quote I heard most recently, and I may butcher it here, but it sounded as though the theme of the quote is that Dave Ramsey is saying that he got successful after working 20 years. And I think within the industry, that's something you have seen as well, right? Where it seems as though it was like a one-hit wonder, whereas there's so much work that's going on, right? And behind the scenes, have you seen that? And if that is accurate, why will you continue to repeat the skill of bringing forward the truth in the industry?
Well, I do think it's true. And I can answer that both from the perspective of the entertainers as well as myself as a podcaster. The entertainers, as I mentioned, I've had on participants from American Idol, The Voice, America's Got Talent, The X Factor. These shows, I've had guests come on and tell me that it didn't give them overnight success, that it gave them good exposure, but they do still have to put in the time and the effort and the work. Now that they've gotten their name up there a little bit, it still requires a lot of hard work. So Dave Ramsey is right. It's a long, what's the expression? It's a marathon, not a sprint. And the same thing for me with my podcast is I've been doing this. I'm always proud to say that I've delivered a new episode on time every week for more than 3.5 years. We're coming up on episode 200 of my podcast, but I didn't get into 130 countries. I'm proud that the show has gotten listeners from 130 countries around the world. I just announced that we hit 130 today. So it didn't happen overnight. It took more than 3.5 years to get into 130 countries around the world. So, I'm going to keep doing the things that I do that hopefully make the show successful. But just like in anything else, you have to learn from other people. You can't sit in your house and just try to figure everything out on your own. You have to get out and be a networker, attend events, meet other people. I go to podcasting events and I learn from others who are having more success than me, or maybe the same amount, but are getting there a different path than I am. So I really think that it's really, again, it's that spirit of community, of everyone helping one another, just like I'm trying to embody on the podcast and have the guests help the listeners. And then maybe I can be of some help to the guest, in addition to just giving them promotion on the show.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. Bruce, tell me one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
Besides my podcast?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Something else.
Something that I've done consistently over the last 3 years besides my podcast. Well, I would go into my personal life and just say, I've worked at deepening my faith walk, and just seeking the Lord more and more and trying to do what I can, whether it's getting involved in more groups. But, over the last 3 years, I know that I've consistently attended my Christian Business Connections meeting every week. I've not done a couple of the other things that I'm involved with spiritually for 3 years, but, they all fall into that category of really just, trying to be a better Christian.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, well, I was going to say it makes me feel great, but, we're all sinners. So it makes me feel like there's always more work to do. You can never do enough.
And why would you suggest to someone that's listening that they do combine where you're combining the spiritual side of what is happening in the physical world, if you would?
Well, when I see the success that I have in my business, whether it's Now Hear This Incorporated or whether it's Now Hear This Entertainment, the podcast, I'm quick to thank God for that and to say this doesn't happen without a lot of prayer, without a lot of faith, without a lot of belief And I also challenge myself to recognize that when there's down times in my business, that again, I will turn to him then. People, I once heard it said that people get to a point where they say, well, I guess that's I guess that all there is left to do now is pray, as though it's a last resort. That should be your first course of action, not your last. So it does very much intertwine. And that's why I like our Christian Business Connections group, because we can be strong Christians in our business. I've had guests on my podcast who are Christian music entertainers themselves. I mean, I interview people from various genres, but it shows you that you can mix your faith life and your business life. And I think it also helps you be more of an ethical business person, because you do have to answer to God at the end of the day when you lay your head on the pillow and say, how did I live my day today? Is it something that if I faced him, I'd be proud of what I did?
Amazing audience. You're hearing it live here from Bruce Wawrzyniak. You can definitely connect with him. Check out his podcast, Now Hear This, or you can go over to nowhearthis.biz. Bruce, let's switch gears for a moment now and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Bruce, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Oh, gosh. I can't even remember what I had for dinner last night. Let's see. You'll have to settle for when I was working for my grandfather at his stand at the market, an open air market selling fruits and vegetables.
How old do you think you were?
Probably 13 or 14 years old.
Oh, that's too late, Bruce. Come on, give us something. Give us something.
Well, the memories from earlier are things that I would only be remembering because I saw them in home movies. My parents had home movies of us with no sound.
Right.
But I was somebody that always wanted Dad to drag out the movie projector so that we could watch our home movies. So I could tell you, about me struggling to turn down my bed and then crawling up around where the pillow is supposed to be and laying there and sucking my finger and falling asleep, up where the pillow is supposed to be instead of straight the way you're supposed to lay in the bed. But that's only because I remember it from a home movie.
Wow. Well, yeah, we could take that. That's intriguing. We could take that. So why do you think, other than the fact that you've seen that memory sticks in your mind, one, and how do you see it connecting to who you are today?
Well, I think if you really want to drill down into that, it's the fact that my father took the time to make those home movies, which showed that he loved his children so much. And I think that has translated over to me today in that I have the opportunity to give that kind of love to my son and my daughter. And it's obviously something that I'm influenced by the way that I saw my dad raise myself and my brother and sister.
That's amazing. And I'll also add as well to the entire community that you touch via the podcast, via the recorded media format that you're using to allow them as well to be captured by the things that could have been lost.
Sure, absolutely.
That's amazing, Bruce. You almost didn't give us that. Wow.
I might be too humble.
Oh, well, it's okay. I'm glad that you shared it. If we fast forwarded to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
My favorite song? Well, this is going to give away my age because I'm calculating what year that would be. So I still am, but I was a very big fan of the Electric Light Orchestra. So I know that year, Don't Bring Me Down was their popular song. And I want to say in Don't Bring Me Down, there's a part in there where people would always look at me and they would say Bruce, and I would get really mad and I would correct them and I'd say, look at the lyrics. He's actually saying Gruce with a G as in Gary, not Bruce. So that song was so popular when I was 12 that was a real favorite of mine. And like I said, one that, kind of had personal implications, so to speak.
That's amazing. Well, it's fascinating to me how these things do connect. I mean, you're definitely the person standing out there representing the musician, representing the artist, definitely saying, don't bring me down, right?
Yeah, or don't drag me down, because I am a very positive person, so I don't want people who are going to come around me and be negative.
Oh, yeah, love it. Well, Bruce, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there is a small declaration form. So So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Bruce?
Okay, let's do it.
Bruce, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Unfortunately, I think the answer is no.
Are you married?
Yes.
Do you have children?
Yes, a son and a daughter.
Do you believe in God?
Absolutely.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
People don't like when I use this expression, but I will say yes and no.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about
no.
3 hours a week?
Here's what I watch. I watch Tampa Bay Lightning hockey games, Tampa Bay Buccaneers football games, Tampa Bay Rays baseball games, and I watch WWE Monday Night Raw. That's really about it.
All right. And what about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Oh, definitely not less than 8 hours. Remember, I'm an entrepreneur, so my radar is always up.
Well, Bruce, if you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents Bruce Wawrzyniak, what would you say that is?
Well, someone used to say this on a radio show years ago, so this isn't mine, but I do feel that, and the expression is, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice.
Love it. Bruce, this has been a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Just that if you like music, do please listen to my podcast, Now Hear This Entertainment, and you can find that at nhte.net. It stands for Now Hear This Entertainment, so you can either listen at nhte.net or you can use the links there to get it from iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, or TuneIn Radio.
Love it. Bruce, again, great pleasure. Thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.